as they've, weathered the heat and they're getting used to everything? Is the excitement building as you're getting closer and closer? Or, are you still in this mode of, oh my gosh, I've got to put a starting group together and we're just like a week and a half away?
No, I couldn't be more excited, Karen. And even yesterday, once again, whether it's, watching our veteran guys and how close they're getting timing wise. I mean, there's usually a difference between how quickly some of the younger guys get ready as opposed to some of the more experienced players. I think we're seeing a little bit of that, but I'm really happy with what I'm seeing with some of the guys that we know are going to be a part of this club. And, I've always loved about spring training, and I know we can't call that what we're doing now, but watching some of these young players, they're always going to get opportunities. And to watch some of the things that we watched yesterday is exciting about some of the future. But the here and now looks really good to me also, Karen. And I know these guys, they just keep showing up. So last night we called and we decided last minute after we got off of our post game that, you know what, these guys are dragging a little bit, especially the young players. They've had a lot of innings, a lot of at-bats. Let's take a day. We'll get some lives like we will today, but we need to probably, watch. When you see a guy like a Nick Heath seize up out there with dehydration, I mean, that stuff just is a reminder. And the guys were a little bit tired, but the effort has been phenomenal. We called up each of the veterans saying, hey, we're going to have some lives. And to a man, every one of them said, I'll take every one of them that I can get. So, I mean, just that, we keep talking about how do we keep the urgency? How do we keep these guys pushing forward? And I think it's just happening organically. It's just who they are.
So just to be clear, no inter squad game today. Just live BP a little bit, lightening it up a little bit.
That's right. Yeah, you're not going to see. We're going to back off with some of the individual defense, some of the team defense. We're going to bring them in, get them stretched, get them in the cage to where they get good and loose, and then the guys. And it's mostly going to be the more veteran players are going to be the ones taking the lives. They asked for them, and so we'll keep a shorter day for all the younger players who've been soaking up a lot of the innings. But yeah, they've all done a phenomenal job so far.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Karen.
Mike, how much were you in Alex's ear at all those few months after you were hired as manager here? Did to get him to come back? Were you recruiting him at all?
I did, but I really didn't have a relationship enough to keep staying in his ear. Right from the start, he was the first guy I called. Right, I think you start with the guys, and you give respect to where it's due. And so hopeful, and I think it was a collaborative effort where, I remember calling Whit for the first time, and he and I talking about, hey, what do you think Gordo's going to do? And they're very close, and then I think he just he appreciated the love that his teammates were throwing him, and how much they were letting him know behind the scenes how much he's meant to them in their development, and what he means to this organization. And I think all of that was just part of it, but I think he did need to hear. Obviously, he was in close contact with Dayton, and that was the main contact point. And I just wanted to let him know what I witnessed from across the field watching him, what I've heard, what I did know about him, and then let him know, man, it's a tough decision. It really is. And he had to have Jamie right on board. The kids, everybody needed to believe that this is the right decision. And I said it this offseason, it was one of those probably most understated, cool baseball things to watch happen this past offseason, to see a guy who didn't go test the waters, who I just love how he embraces this community and realizes that he's an ambassador and a role model. And those are things I think get overlooked all too often, but Alex wears all of those labels really well.
Mike, I know we're, it's uncharted territory for everybody. No one's ever, piloted a team through a season where COVID is sitting on the sideline. But, when you get the news about Keller, is that the biggest fear? I mean, I'm sure you guys have now begun to talk about it a lot and what the plan is, but to lose a starting pitcher with how delicate that is to every fifth day and how their routines are to be able to just lock and load somebody else in that slot. And does it change how you go about just looking at starting pitching in general?
Yeah, Soren, it's going to be it's going to continue to be a challenge if this thing hits any of our players and you start talking about starting pitching. And we've been very clear, and everybody is right from the beginning. How do we get these guys built up to take the ball and go as deep as we need them to go? But that could look different. And we're trying to encourage Brad that we don't know how quickly this thing can turn around, how quickly the testing process will allow somebody to get back. We're talking to all the players that way to try and keep them ready, keep them on point, and then do as much as they can do while they are quarantined. And, we watched firsthand how these guys figured out how to do that before. It's a little bit different now. They might not have as many resources. It's not, for many of them, their full-time homes, and so they got to get creative. And so we're trying to create space and bring things to them to allow them to get as much work as possible. And I got to tell you, Soren, I've been just blown away at how these guys used the time and the space and all the restrictions and came back as sharp as they did. So I'm not limiting anybody, but we're going to have to keep our eye. And does it concern us? 100%. I mean, it has to. We've got to be careful to make sure that the guys are properly built up, ready to go. And any time away would be time that makes us less confident of that. But I don't think we also we can't allow ourselves to completely write off anybody in any situation that they're in.
Does it push you more towards having a backup guy throwing right on that taxi squad that's mirroring the days that a guy is going, so whoever goes down, he's the guy that goes for the 2 or the 3? Or do you look at more, we're going to go 3 and 4 inning shots with guys and really, if we need to stretch that guy, we're kind of doubling up with starting pitchers every time? Have you discussed how that might work?
Yeah, and I think we're still at that point where they'll throw a day, have a day or 2 off, and then ready to go again without necessarily reverse engineering from opening day. And we have so many guys that fall into that category, whether they're young guys for developmental purposes or players that we see need to have the flexibility to go beyond just a few innings. And so you're going to continue to watch a number of these pitchers get stretched. I think that's kind of like our team as a whole, versatility. So if we have a guy who's got the kind of stuff that could take the ball in the first and could be stretched out to the point where he could run out there for 3, 4, and if he's throwing the ball really well and built up, he could take the ball for 5, whatever we need him to. Or he could be a guy that comes in and does throw in a shorter stint and comes back on shorter rest. I think right now, in the communication we've had with the guys, almost all of them, is take what your preconceived idea is of whether you're starter, reliever, whatever. Let's kind of throw that out the window. What do I got to do to help this team get 27 outs today? And be aware that we're going to try to be creative to maximize your stuff against this opponent. And I just don't want to hem ourselves in and limit to what we can do with each of these guys. And most of them are, I'd say all of them. I mean, we've heard already Ian's embracing this, Greg Holland's embracing this. When you got guys like that, I think it kind of all falls in line. And I think we're going to continue just to try and give each guy a shot, show what they can do, and then put the pieces together once we get to 2 weeks from now.
Coach, I know you've already said this probably for the beat reporters, but just an update on Dozier's hand.
Yeah, he was on the phone with us just a few minutes before I got on, Haley, and he said everything felt good. Just some general soreness, which today works out well. We won't let him take lives. He'll come in and they'll get their hands on him again. But he called into the medical team and said, "Listen, if this was game day, I'm going." So that's the news that we wanted to hear, and heard good things too about Nick Heath and some of his dehydration. So I think they're trying to get ahead of that. Great reminder to everybody, but we're doing all kinds of testing, trying to make sure that the hydration levels are proper. But it's just hard. It's really hard to kind of get your head around how much sweating we're doing if this isn't the environment that you're used to.
Mike, as a follow-up on Dozier's hand, is it difficult for the pitchers? It's one thing, I know nobody goes into a spring training game wanting to hit somebody on the other team, but you can at least, practice your craft and perfect. If you need to, bring a pitch inside with conviction to try to move somebody off the plate, it's not one of your guys. Now, you have that situation. Unfortunately, hopefully Dozier's going to be okay. But does it make it harder on your pitchers to maybe get ready because they don't want to attack the way they would attack a guy wearing another uniform, and they don't have that opportunity that they would get at spring training?
Yeah, that's I think that's going to be kind of individualized. There's some guys that are probably more conscious of that than others. And Brady throws the ball inside extremely well. And through the first part when we were doing a lot of the lives, and even sometimes in the cage, we'll tell the guys, because it's more of a confined space, a little bit of claustrophobia in there as opposed to being on a wide open field. If we're coming up and in and we're working on up and in, we will tell the hitter for the most part. But a guy like Brady, he thrives on being able to make pitches, but ball's going to get away sometime. And so the conversation with him is, Brady, you keep throwing inside. You need to throw inside. That was the right pitch. The execution wasn't there. Things are going to happen sometimes, man. You just got to keep doing that. And I think you'll hear too. I remember we had this conversation with Gordo about, hey, we're letting you know when it's coming in. He goes, no, you're not. He's like, I don't want to know, because they're going to try and come in on me, and I need to work on that pitch too. If it comes in and it gets me, it gets me. There's just different philosophies. But if we got some fireballers, so we try to match up to guys that we know are more in the developmental process and have a tendency maybe to leave the ball arm side high. You're going to notice we're not going to have Jorge Soler standing in there. And we're not going to be doing a lot of inside pitching. We try to monitor that. It's nice being right behind the screen where I can get a catcher and say, listen, this guy's having a little trouble finishing the ball. Let's stay mostly away right here. No sense in letting the ball sail up and in right now. That's, so that we've got both. We've got some of the development stuff, but, a guy like Brady, he needs to come in and compete and use his best stuff. And Dozier, I think he'll tell you too. He's not concerned about that happening. It just is part of the game. But got him in a bad spot. But fortunately, as we know right now, things seem to be okay.
As a follow-up, you were talking about Brady Singer. I know one of the knocks against him, not that there were many, right? He's a first-round draft pick and a guy that some people thought about being number one overall. But some people questioned whether he had the weapons to get left-handers out, that was going to be his challenge to really maybe fulfill his potential. Was, could he come up with the pitches to, something to really get left-handers uncomfortable? Is that accurate? Is that what he's working on? How is his progress? How would you react just to where he stands now from those comments that were made, at draft time?
Yeah, and I know he's heard those comments, which would probably explain part of the reason why he's been so adamant about making a better changeup, and the changeup is coming along really well. But to get to your original question, Soren, I think his slider is plenty good to get lefties out. It's the execution of it. I think it's a great pitch for him to be able to use back door. It's a good back foot pitch as well. But in order to make both of those pitches work, he's going to have to do exactly what we just got through talking about. He's going to have to make inside pitches. He's going to have to let that left-handed batter know that he can come in there for a strike, and he can command off the plate as well. So I see the ability there with Brady to have above average control with the fastball, which opens up so much more to happen with the secondary pitches. But that the slider and the data will support, it's an above average pitch. And he is so disciplined of mastering his craft that you can pretty much bet that he's going to continue to improve to where that'll be an effective pitch against lefties and righties. But he will also figure out that changeup too, and it's coming along. It's a good pitch.